Hello, viewers, and welcome to this edition of Global Vibes, a show that feels the pulse of the global community in Thunder Bay. Today, my guest is Kathy Paroshi Harris, an active volunteer in the community and who promotes the Ukrainian heritage. And today, as you can see, she's going to be talking to us and showcasing her collection of musical instruments. So thank you so much, Kathy, for being with us. And what a beautiful collection you have here, and we'll learn more about it. But to begin with, I'm very curious about your name. If you can tell me a little bit about the meaning and the origin of your name.
Okay.
And did I get it right? Paroshi.
You said it in English. And
Okay.
yeah, in Ukrainian, we say Paroshi. And Harris is my married name, my husband's last name. And Katerina was my birth name. And I prefer to go by the Ukrainian name Katrusia when I'm with Ukrainians because that's the younger version of Katerina, and I like to feel young, so I ask people to call me Katrusia, but Catherine is also fine. So in Ukrainian, a lot of times you take your father's first name and put at the end of your last name. So my father's name was Vasil, so I would also have a Vasilena added to that, but in Canada, a lot of Canadians that have been here many generations don't do that, but a lot of people, newcomers that come to Canada have that, yeah.
So you're Canadian born.
I'm Canadian born, my parents are Canadian born, and my one Baba grandmother was Canadian born as well, but all relatives, ancestry, and bloodline from Ukraine.
So where is the inspiration coming from to promote, to talk about your Ukrainian culture? What's the inspiration?
Since I was a little kid, I wanted to be more Ukrainian and always tried to study as much as I could. I wanted to learn the language. My parents didn't speak it to myself because they suffered a lot of discrimination as children where they couldn't speak English, so they didn't want us to have the same issue with that. So I strived to learn Ukrainian as much as I could. When I got my driver's license, I went to college to take a night course. When I was in Ukraine, I tried to stay with just Ukrainian people to practice it. And now I have some newcomers living with us, so I can practice it as well. But not just the language, although that is really the root of the culture. And I feel I'm not that great at it, but everything about Ukrainian culture. I've been Ukrainian dancing since I was very little and doing all the arts, the pisanka, and became very interested in music and the instruments. And my husband would say the collection of your instruments. And this is probably only a quarter of the ones that I have. There's several that are at the museum right now as part of the Thunder Bay Historical Museum has a display that we've co-coordinated called Ukrainian Matrix. And it's there till September, if you haven't seen it yet.
September of this year.
September of this year.
Oh,
So some of these instruments actually, I just re-loaned them from my loan to the museum.
And they go back.
And they go back today, yeah, so they'll be there later today.
Yeah.
And then some of them I have other duplicates of that are also at the museum, and then some instruments that didn't fit in the museum. So I've been collecting them forever, and my husband thinks it's kind of comical because I don't really play them all very well.
But it's just the love of collecting all of these, eh?
That's
And
right,
you've
that's
also
right.
loaned it to the museum. That's great. Yeah.
And I'd love people to understand more about the
Yeah.
the instruments and the beauty and the uniqueness of it. And I think every culture has very unique
Absolutely.
instruments. And but listening to Ukrainian music as a child and then using it for dancing, I've been intrigued with it. And I actually took a musical tour of Ukraine a few years ago, and had some experts teaching and showing, and I trained in Ukraine for dancing, and during that time we actually had to learn about the instruments. So I understand a lot about the instruments, but I can't play them very well.
No, I'm sure. Well, to start with, we would just love to know more about the instruments, but I'm very drawn to your earring. Does it have any significance?
My earrings. So my earrings are a little gold trezub, and the trezub is the Ukrainian emblem, the symbol of Ukraine. And there's different theories on what it means, but in translation, it means 3 teeth.
3 teeth.
Three teeth, yeah, because it looks like the 3 little prongs sticking up.
All right.
And you'll see it in anything to do with Ukrainian, in addition to the Ukrainian flag, which is blue on top and yellow on the bottom.
A symbol. Okay. Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Okay.
So, Kathy, where do we start? What are you going to talk to us? Which is the first instrument you were going to talk to us
I think I'm going to talk about the Simala.
Okay.
This was the first instrument that I owned, and I actually got this when I was probably about 9 years old.
Wow.
My parents had friends that we'd go to visit, and I was the youngest of 5 kids that were all grown up. And I used to tag along with my parents when they visited Peter and Mary Moroz, and Peter would pull out his Simala, and that's the name of this instrument, is a cymbale. And in English, people will call it a hammer dulcimer.
Okay.
And he used to teach me a few tunes on it, and he'd pull out his other instruments and play along with me. And I was just a wee kid then. And one year, my parents traveled to Manitoba and brought me back this piece of cymbale.
Wow.
And it's very heavy. You
Yes.
helped carry it in just now. And this, with its carry box, is, I'm sure it's 50 pounds or more. It's very heavy. And it's unique because I think they use kitchen linoleum here. And I think this is a headlight off of a tractor. That's the little embellishment in the front. But the instrument itself is filled with many, many, many strings. Do you want me to explain
Yes,
it a
please.
little bit?
Yeah.
So each grouping of strings has 4 strings, and each cymbala could be very differently made, where the notes are different at the start and the beginning. So tuning a cymbala can be a challenge if you don't know where to begin. And the strings each have to have the same tone. So if you're tuning this note, each of the strings have to have the same note. So you're not just tuning one string.
Oh, so each in that same group. Oh, wow.
Have to carry.
Okay.
And the extra strings allow for the sound to resonate in the hollow case of the cymbala. And the reason why it's called hammer as well, hammer dulcimer, is you actually literally hammer this. And, and in Ukrainian, they'll often call this like palci, like it's fingers that you're hammering with.
Okay. Oh.
And there's different octaves that go up and down, and it's believed that the instrument originally came from another country and traveled into Ukraine. And there's theories that it either came from Hungary, Moldova, or Romania. If it came from Hungary, it definitely made a big presence in the Zakarpattia region of Ukraine and Western Ukraine. And from there, it traveled to the Hutsul area in the Carpathian Mountains, where it became a regular site of the Troiste Musica, which are the musicians that play 3 instruments, usually the cymbala, the violin, and maybe a bayan, a button accordion, or a sopilka, a flute. And then it traveled into the Halychina region, so also in Western Ukraine. And it's very commonly found in orchestras, and it's also a great solo instrument. So it's quite beautiful. I will be sharing within the show some footage. Thunder Bay had a very famous cymbala player, Ted Hedesimchuk. He passed away in 2022, unfortunately. And he had... you probably, or you may have seen him outside of Victoriaville. He used to busker outside there playing his cymbala.
Okay. Yeah.
And he also entertained, he was part of the Jurevli Ukrainian Folk Ensemble, where he performed with us. And before COVID, he started giving me lessons because I was getting close to retirement and I really wanted to work on this. So I'm so glad that I videotaped a lot of his classes so that I can refer to them when I get back to playing the instrument. So one of the other things I wanted to mention with this is that a lot of the musicians would have a leather strap and put this around their neck.
Oh my God, this heavy.
I know.
Oh my God.
And some of them also play with it, on a table such as this or a little bit lower. There are bigger versions, like orchestra versions, and there's smaller ones. And actually at the museum exhibit, we have a very small one.
That was smaller than this as well. Okay.
And it was donated by the Kopachansky family of Thunder Bay. The instrument came from Ukraine. It played across Western Canada, came back, and it was hanging out in the Atikokan area where the Kopachansky family started out. working with the train, the CP rail, I think it was. So that's actually at the museum, and the story behind it is pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna just play a few notes. It's not horribly tuned. It does go out of tune very quickly when you move it.
Yeah.
And it just traveled from my house to here. So,
I know.
But I think it's a beautiful work of art as well.
Beautiful. Kathy, we will learn more about your other instruments, but we'll take a very, very short break.
Okay.
And we'll be right back, dear viewers. Stay tuned. Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Global Vibes, and my guest is Kathy Peroshi Harris, and she's talking to us about her collection of musical instruments. And what is the next instrument you're going to talk to us about?
Well, before I go on to the next one, I just want to make mention that when I was in Ukraine training to dance for 4 years, I did take classes on the Simala from Taras Baran, and he has since passed, but he is known across Ukraine as a Ukrainian state artist of the Simala, and he built many Simala as well as many other instruments, and he played in orchestras and across the country and a lot of parts of Europe. So a very famous man, and I was very privileged to learn from him.
Of course,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
And where do you play all these instruments? I mean, you mentioned orchestra, you mentioned symphonies. Where else would you be playing these? In weddings and...
So instruments like the Simala or some other instruments that I didn't bring, like the mandolin, the violin, which we call the skripka, the bandura, which is a very big harp sounding instrument. Those can be performed or played at many different events. A lot of times weddings, Ukrainian weddings, polka bands, and I actually have some records here too that...
Yeah, I see a beautiful display here.
And there's many of them are Canadian artists from the past that I grew up with. Some of my favorite records are there. And there's Simala playing on them. There's different whistles and stuff that I'm going to talk about next.
Sure. Go ahead.
And
Yes.
stuff. Yeah. So when I was studying in Ukraine, I came across Pan Lubomir was one of our instructors for music, and he taught us about a lot of aerophones. And one of the very common Ukrainian instruments is a sopilka, and the sopilka is almost like a recorder, but you put your hands in a different order. So instead of this, your right hand on top, it's your left hand on top, and it's very much the same in its sound and its pitch, and they come in different tones as well, but. So I'm not a musician. I just play with these things.
So it's like a flute?
It's like a flute.
Would you put that under the flute category?
Yeah, and this is very commonly played in the Carpathian Mountains with hutzul music. You think about a shepherd playing it to call his sheep, and it's very agrarian. So with farmers and that, very common. Now this is a dvoidenziovka, which is a double sopilka, so it's a double flute. So there's actually 2 holes on the back and 2 holes on the bottom and 2 whole sets of fingers. And what it does is it harmonizes with itself. And there's some really beautiful tunes that are played by this. And at one point I thought I would become a master, but instead we just play it and then plug our ears. Sounds like a train, right? So I'm sure there's somebody out there watching this that knows how to play this, and I want them to get a hold of me.
Just the fact that you've got all of these collection and the fact that you're sharing it with us, that's such a big learning for us.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And these specific instruments here hang at my entranceway in my house. So they bring a lot. Well, they're actually in the museum right now on exhibit, but. It leads to a lot of great conversations. So this instrument was made by Mikhailo Tefeychik in the Carpathian Mountains, and I visited him when I was on the musical tour. And it's called a telenka, and it became famous last year during Eurovision competition, where a band Kaluch from Ukraine won the competition playing the song Stefania. And if you Google that, you'll see a guy in a pink hat, which I also have in the museum, not his hat, but my own. And this instrument only has a hole on the end, and then it has a whistle opening here.
Oh, I see.
And then the hole that you blow into.
Beautiful.
And when you blow harder, you get a higher pitch.
Oh.
And if you blow softer,
Oh, yes.
so you can get different octaves.
Just
of the-
controlling your,
Yeah, with the pressure of your breath. So again, I'm no master of this, but it is a lot of fun because you don't need to know your fingering at all. You just have to cover the hole in different ways at the end.
So, Kathy, tell me a little bit about the cultural scene here in Thunder Bay,
So right now we have
the Ukrainian cultural scene.
right. Okay. We have 2 dance groups in Thunder Bay. We have 2 choirs and performing groups, and we have a newly formed bandura ensemble called Lastyuvka Bandura Ensemble. Or sorry, Lastyuvka Bandura Capella. And we have a lot of newcomers that have come from Ukraine, unfortunately because of the war.
Correct.
But it has given us a new spark to our Ukrainian community, where a lot of them are interested in learning about the instruments. A lot of them weren't able necessarily to practice or to learn about the instruments because of the repression that Ukraine has undergone over the years. So it's kind of nice to have a revival of the arts and to share that.
And
in
do
a
you
community.
teach? Are you teaching?
Yes. So I'm the artistic director of the Chaban Ukrainian Dance Group.
Okay.
So that's been a big passion of mine, a volunteer passion of mine since I moved to Thunder Bay. I've been doing it since I was a kid, coming from Niagara. And
When did you move to Thunder Bay, Kathy?
1984.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I moved here on the condition that there was a Ukrainian dance group. I came for a job in the
was
hospital.
there? Oh, okay, okay.
They brought a dancer into my interview. They really needed dietitians in Thunder Bay in 1984, so they found a Ukrainian dancer who was actually washing pots, so that convinced me that Thunder Bay was the place to come to.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been involved with that group ever since, and it's a great passion. I also head and coordinate a Ukrainian Korovai collective where we get together and we make Ukrainian wedding breads for people who are getting married in Thunder Bay.
Tell me about the wedding bread. What is so special about that?
So we actually did a show on it in the winter on Ukrainian
you have a show too. You have a show here as well, right?
Yeah.
Ukrainian Connections.
Ukrainian Connections,
right.
yes. So we try to highlight different things about Ukrainian culture, but this was actually hard to showcase because I didn't want to have to interview myself. So I appreciate that you invited me into the show.
Thank you. So we'll again take a very short break, Kathy. We will be right back. Stay tuned. We would really want to know about the wedding bread. Welcome back, viewers. You're watching Global Wives, and Kathy Paroshi-Harris is my guest today. And besides talking about various musical instruments, she's also giving me a glimpse of the other art forms, and which is drawing me to the Ukrainian embroidery.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so distinct, so beautiful, and it's an art form by itself, right?
It is. And we actually just had a class at the museum last week where we taught the Ukrainian cross stitch. And the T-shirt I have
You're wearing.
It is, but this is actually machine made because T-shirts, a lot of the T-shirts you can buy in Ukraine, and they're fun to wear, and they're wash and wear easy, and this one came from Ukraine. But there's various forms of embroidery. There's many different stitches that they use, and in different parts of Ukraine, the patterns are different, the colors are different. So it's very regional specific.
Okay.
And if anything, the war in Ukraine right now has encouraged more Ukrainians to wear their Ukrainian embroidery on a regular basis, to showcase it wherever they can. We have Embroidery Day. Vyshyvanka Day, where we wear our blouses and shirts. So it's a symbol of pride and our cultural heritage.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that as well. So which is the next instrument that we're going to learn or hear about?
Okay, so this is called the lihava, which is, most people don't know this instrument, but it's sort of the sister to the trembita. Trembita is one of the longest instruments in the world. It's in the world records for that. But this instrument is sort of a relative because it's the same style and make, where it's very long, and it's usually made with a tree that has been hit by lightning, and then it's split in half, and if it hasn't already been split in half, and it's carved out and then stuck back together again. And this instrument is comes from the Boykivshchina region of Ukraine, which is in the west. And this is where my dad's parents came from, this region. So it's kind of neat. And I got this from Pan Lubomir, which was one of our professors that taught some of the instruments in Ukraine. And the artist that made this explains that this kind of horn was used for mornings or awakenings. So it was played either in the morning to wake the kids up. My husband likes to play this one. Or in the new year. So it brings in the new, it starts anew. So I think if you were to hear this from afar, you would understand that it would probably wake you up. And the rooster on it is just...
It's just symbolic again.
Symbolic about the morning, because early in the morning you'd hear a rooster. So it's not a pretty sound, but they use these kinds of horns, and not just in Ukraine, but many cultures, for communicating.
Yes.
You know, either when there's good things or danger or dinner's ready. So here we are, let's wake up.
I can hear that.
You could hear that? Okay. So could the people down in the office. Yeah. And then the next instrument I'm going to show you. Some people would just say this is a noisemaker, but actually, any instrument could be a noisemaker if you don't play it very well. But this is called a derkach, and it's again in many different cultures, and the use of this kind of instrument has been explained in a variety of ways, that it's to scare evil away, or to wake up the evil. They sometimes would use this at church on Easter, to make sure that everything is holy and clean and pure, and all evilness and horror are gone. But I'll just play it real quick.
I remember these.
Yeah, you probably had one as a kid. Yeah, so I think a lot of cultures have them, but I got this one in Ukraine, and it's just a lot of fun.
Right.
And
beautiful figurines out there. And these are all instruments?
These are all instruments. So these are a family of instruments called the whistles, or my pronunciation's not the greatest.
But you know, you've been away from Ukraine, and you are born, raised, and in Canada. Just the fact that you have, you're continuing with all these traditions, and you're teaching all of us about your heritage, that is so rich and profound. Thank you so much, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to quickly play a few of these. So this is called an ocarina, and again, you see ocarina in different cultures, either made out of clay, as these are, or wooden carved, or
these are
ceramic.
These are all ceramic.
Yeah, they're clay. Clay baked, and they replicate birds and are often played in with orchestrations and give the sound of birds in the distance. Okay, we're gonna take that part out.
That a rest.
I think I was playing it earlier, and it might have humidity in it here. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Forget that one.
Yeah.
Let's try this one.
And the tunes that you're playing are folk music?
Yeah, little fun little jig, kolomeka kind of thing. Now this one is actually
this is so cute.
This one came from the Poltavian region of Ukraine, and zazulka, and this is a zazulka, these little guys, and they're commonly used by children as an instrument, as a toy, but they're also, both of these families, the ocarina and zuzulke, are considered talisman as well. So like an amulet, bringing good luck. So children would often have these little guys and then progress eventually to an ocarina and then eventually to a sopilka and then a dvojdenzivka. So it's kind of the progressive, like kids nowadays might want to learn the guitar and then they progress to something harder or bigger or more costly.
Cute little bird chirping.
Yeah, cute little bird. Cute little bird. You get to whistle into their little bums here. It's a little cuckoo bird. And this one here has water in it, and it makes a little chirpy sound.
Yeah.
So it's very, very fun. So yeah, so it's something that children could play, but they're also used in orchestra groups. And now we're finding in a lot of the Ukrainian musicians now are bringing back a lot of these instruments. One I didn't talk yet about is the drimba. They also call it a mouth harp. It has several other different names.
Wow, okay.
And this one you play by putting it against your teeth and twigging it. So we're going to run out of time, so I'm just going to... I'll just explain it, and if people want to learn more, a lot of this is at the Thunder Bay Museum, and you can find a lot of information online as well.
But that's until the September.
Until September.
Until September, there's a special exhibition.
Yeah, it's called Ukrainian Matrix, up on the 3rd floor.
Up on the 3rd floor, okay. And Kathy, besides all of these, I mean, if you want to learn something, one of these instruments, how does one get in touch with you?
You can message me in Messenger. Yeah.
Okay, and you have a Facebook page?
I do.
Okay, social media.
Yeah,
okay.
Social media, that's right.
Is there any project that you're working on currently?
The museum exhibit is a big project, and our dance group, we're working on our 45th anniversary is coming up this coming season, so we're pretty excited about that.
Look forward to those announcements, and thank you so much for just cherishing and carrying forward all of these traditions and these instruments that you brought here to Thunder Bay. So thank you so much and sharing all of these with us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I apologize I can't play them really well, but thank you very much for the opportunity to share.
We'll come for the concert.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, viewers, for watching Global Vibes and sharing this time with Kathy. And we look forward to meeting you again in the next episode of Global Vibes. Till then, stay well.